Hey guys, today's lesson is Chapter 5, Lesson 4. Okay, estimate using benchmark percents. Please make sure you put your name on your handout. Okay. Our TEKS, which is our objective, is 6.4f. I can explain the relationship between benchmark percents and fractions. Okay, so what are our benchmark percents? Well, we know some of our benchmark decimals and fractions. So for example, you don't need to write any of this down. This is just for us to look at. Okay, so for example, one of our benchmark fractions is 1/2. The equivalent percent is 50%. So that would mean 50% is one of our benchmarks. Okay, same thing for our fourths, our eighths, and so forth. Okay, so we're going to be using those to make estimations today. And why is that? Why are we estimating? Well, let's look at number 1. Number 1, it says 52% is closest to which benchmark percent? Okay, and we just saw that 50% is one of our benchmarks, and 52% is pretty close to 50%. Okay, so let's think about this. Which would be easier? Because we always want to make things easier if we can when we're doing our math. Would it be easier to find 52% of a number, or would it be easier to find 50% of a number? Well, 50 is a pretty solid, easy number, so that's why we're going to estimate. Okay, that's what I would use, 50%. So 1a, we're looking for what is 50% of 298. Looking at 298, can we round that number to make it a nice, pretty number, just like we did with our 52% to 50%? Well, we're going to estimate by rounding 298 up to 300. Okay, so we don't have to do a bunch of crazy division and multiplication. How can we find 50% of 300? Well, we're going to use a strip diagram. Okay, on top we're going to represent our percents. So I know this would be 0%. Okay, we know one full strip diagram is 100%. Okay, and if we look at our bar graph, we've split it into fourths. And I know 100 divided by 4 is 25, so that means each one is going to represent 25%. We're going up by 25. So that'd be 50, 75. Okay. On the bottom, we're going to represent the number that we're estimating to. Okay, so that means this is going to be our 0. We're estimating to 300, so down here we're going to represent 300. And we have to do the same with 300. We have to divide it into fourths. Okay, so over here you can use a little workspace. Do 300 divided by 4, so we know how much each fourth represents. 4 goes into 3 0 times. 3 left over. That's 7, 28, 2, and 0. Okay, so that means each fourth is going to represent 75. That's our interval, or what we're going up by. So it's going to be 150, because 75 plus 75 gives me 150, plus another 75 is going to be 225. Okay, we're looking for 50% of 300. So our next step is to shade up to 50%. Okay, you can use your pencil, colored pencil, you can use a highlighter, whatever you have at home. Okay, so we're representing the 50%. And this shows that 50% of 300 is 150. So that tells me that 52% of 298 is about 150. Why are we saying about? Well, because we're estimating. We know that it's not exact, but since we're making it easier, rounding our numbers, that is our estimation. All right, number 2. 73% is closest to which benchmark percent? Okay, so I know fourths are a benchmark fraction and decimal. And here I see 75%. So 73% is pretty close to 75%. Okay, so 1a, what is 75% of 400? We don't need to estimate on 400 because that's a nice little number. Okay, we need to label our percentages on top. We split 100 into fourths again. Okay, and then on the bottom, we're representing the number. We're going to 400. Okay, we need to find what each fourth is going to represent. Well, we know that 400 divided by 4 is going to be 100. That one's pretty easy. Okay, and I want us to go ahead and circle what percent are we looking for. We're looking for 75%, so circle 75% on top. Okay. That means we're going to shade up to 75%. So we know 75% of 400 is 300. Okay, so that means that 73% of 400 is about 300. In reality, we know it'll be just a little bit less because 73 is less than 75, but remember, we're just estimating. All right, number 3. 47% is closest to which benchmark percent? Okay, well, I know number 1, 50% was a benchmark percent. 47 is pretty close to 50. So we're going to use 50% as our benchmark. Okay, so we're looking for 50% of 692. Okay, so we do need to estimate on this one. Okay, we're going to round up, estimate to 700. Label our percents on top. We're splitting it into fourths again. Okay. And on the bottom, represent our number. We're going from 0 to 700. We need to split 700 into fourths, meaning we're going to divide by 4. Okay, so each fourth is 175, okay, plus another 175, okay. We can also think, well, I know 50% is going to be half. Well, it's half of 700, 350, plus another 107, oops, what did I do? 525. I was thinking 125 in my mind, that's what I was writing, but we know it's plus another 125. Okay, so we're looking for 50% of 700. Circle the percent that we're looking for. We're going to shade. So I know 50% of 700 is going to be 350. Okay, so 47% of 700 is about 350. Okay, and last one, number 4. 60% is closest to which benchmark percent? Okay, well, let's see. Okay. So tenths, 1/10 is one of our benchmarks. %. So if we're talking tenths, I know 60% would be part of that. So we're going to use 60%. Okay, so we're looking for what is 60% of 30. Okay, we're going to represent our percents on top. This time our strip diagram is split into tenths. So that means each one is going to represent 10% because 100 divided by 10 is 10. Okay, and then we need to represent 30 on the bottom. So we want 0 to 30. 30 divided by 10 is 3, so that means we're going up by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 7. Okay, we're looking for 60% circle our 60%. Okay, so we know 60% of 30 is going to be 18. So 60% of 30 is about 18. All right, guys, make sure you bring this completed template with you to class tomorrow. Have a great night.